All right, boys, so first off, I want to tell you that this is off right now because I need quick access to the seat, because I need quick access to the battery. I will explain why as I roll out here really quick. So, yeah, there's some weirdness happening with this bike, but what else is new? We're just getting her dialed in, getting her sorted. But the best part is, turns on, runs like a dream, baby. As we listen, she's already warmed up. I ran her a little bit. Get that supercharged flutter, which is one of the coolest sounds in motorcycling, hands down. Ooh, those new sprockets are spicy. So I took this bike back to Boom's Tune HQ. A guy by the name of Chris originally built this bike for the previous owner, and I told him, hey man, this E85 tune that this bike is on is not really working out for me. This thing's pretty ridiculous. It gets like freaking 40 miles to the tank, and that's about all she'll do. So I need to be able to actually ride this thing. So I was like, can we please get a pump gas tune and get this thing sorted a little bit? Jeez, that's a lot of horsepower. So he said, yeah, no problem. He was like, let's get this thing a little more streetable. So what we did to it was we increased the rear sprocket size from a 38, I know, a 38 to a 41. To give you guys context rather for that, my race bike runs a 49 in the rear, and that's pretty aggressive, but a typical street bike is like 46, 45. So this thing's still geared pretty freaking tall. It's not like it can't do high speeds now. Chris told me it's still good for about 215 miles an hour on the gearing that it's on right now, which is just outrageous. So we didn't lose a whole lot of top speed on this thing, which is pretty cool. The other thing that they did was they backed out the timing a little bit. That was to just kind of just take it easy a little bit, back it off a little bit, make it a little bit safer when it's running the pump gas tune. So we took out some timing, made it a little bit more normal on that pump gas tune, because if you guys don't know, when you have a built motor like this, and I have experience with this kind of stuff because of my Turbo Hayabusa, there are limits to what pump gas can do before you get pre-detonation, which means the engine's gonna go bye-bye, go pop, go kablooey, and we don't want it to go kablooey. So we actually have a switch in the back now, which can actuate an E85 tune or a pump gas tune, which is pretty sweet. So I'm actually running this tank down a little bit because we have to get it prepped for the Texas Mile, and we're gonna be running E85 at the Texas Mile for safety. Yes, it will be producing more power with the 85. I believe it will be doing about 315 wheel horsepower with E85, and it's pulling about 280, 270 on the pump gas tune right now. So still pretty prodigious numbers on this motorcycle, even though we technically detuned it and made it a little bit slower. But I've actually put the quick shifter back on this thing, re-engaged it through the dash. It was turned off due to safety because Chris had seen that on the upper ends of the poles in 4th, 5th, and 6th gear, when people were grabbing quick shifts, it was melting pistons, which this bike actually had happened to it, which was very unfortunate. The other elephant in the room with this bike is the battery, and that's the biggest issue with this thing. So today, most of the day, I've been diagnosing the battery issues with this bike. So what are the battery issues? Let's talk about them. So this motorcycle, because it is fully built and it's running different accessories and different things, key among them is the fuel pump, which is way bigger and draws a lot more current to it, right? You need a battery with a lot of cold cranking amps to keep up with that. Right now I've got a lithium ion battery with about 320 cold cranking amps on this machine, and Chris actually ran this bike and he measured the charge coming off of the reg or the stator, I can't remember, and he said that it was just fine. When the bike's actually at speed, it's recharging, it's got enough amperage to supply power to all the accessories and all the good stuff. However, I have noticed that there were some issues happening. I took this bike out today and it died no less than maybe 4 times on me. I took it back to the shop and I kind of pulled everything out, and I found a small bolt in the negative rubber boot terminal. So inside of the little rubber boot, there was a little bolt inside of there, and I was like, oh, that was probably like contacting the metal terminal on the battery, and that was probably causing issues. So I pulled that out, tried to make sure nothing was touching this thing, covered it with the terminals again with the rubber boots, and it seems to have stopped the issues. I still am getting a P10S battery, which is a much larger cold cranking amp for this motorcycle. The P10S features 720 cold cranking amps, which is a whole lot more than 320, and it should provide adequate power for all of the accessories and the fuel pump and all that good stuff. So reluctant to take this thing out. You know what? I'm gonna stick to the side streets just because I feel like if I get stuck in traffic down there, it's gonna be a disaster for me. That blow-off valve never gets tiring, I'll tell you that.
Now let's be honest with ourselves, guys. Some of us don't ride as much as we'd like to. We snap up some silly bikes on Craigslist and then they end up sitting on a garage for a whole long time because guess what? You've only got the one butt you can put in a saddle at one time. So why are we paying to insure our motorcycles fully when they're just sitting there not being used? Unless maybe you're a Harley rider and the bike's just gonna lay itself down while it's in the garage. I'm not sure, but that's where Voom Insurance can come in. Voom is a pay-per-mile insurance company that's sure to save you a bunch of money if you own multiple bikes or you just don't ride as much as you'd like to. You can save up to 60% versus traditional insurance with policies as low as $50 per year. And the best part, there's no tracking hardware or software required. All you have to do is take a photo of your odometer and submit it to them. If you're a seasonal rider, a multiple bike owner, or you just don't rack up that many miles, Voom could be a great cost-saving solutions for you. Voom is only available in these current states: Arizona, Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Missouri, Texas, and Tennessee. The riding season is just around the corner, so why don't you start the season off with a big savings on your insurance? Maybe you could get yourself that exhaust you've been eyeing. Click the link in my description down below or in the pinned comment to get yourself a free quote. If you're a rider that lives in a colder state, you own multiple bikes, or you just don't get out and ride as much as you used to, Voom could be a great option for you. You're probably overpaying on your traditional insurance, so click the link down below and get a free quote to see if pay-per-mile insurance is right for you with Voom.
And so now, with all those changes, hopefully, especially with that P10S battery, although it is working pretty reasonably right now with this lithium ion with the 320 cold cranking amps, it should all be working correctly. But that's the nature of having a fully built motorcycle, is there's always going to be some things here and there, but my goal is to get this thing to be beautifully, perfectly streetable and exciting and fun to ride on the street and able to do mile events and those sort of things. Although I'm doing my first mile event next week. I've never done one before, so maybe I won't even like it that much, and I just want to keep this thing as a goofy street bike. But I'm very happy with the way it is right now. I think that, you know, given how built up and powerful this motorcycle is, it is doing commendably well. It's idling very nicely. It's riding really nicely, so I'm happy to see it. I really am. So Chris, the builder of this motorcycle, also told me something really crazy, because I noticed this when I was riding the bike the first time, is that it was pulling to the right. And I was like, man, why is this bike pulling to the right? That feels so bizarre. And he explained to me that these motorcycles actually produce so much power that they have torque steer. They actually steer a little bit to the right because there's so much power going through that wheel and actually turning the rear wheel ever so slightly, or like contorting it a little bit, which I thought was just absolutely bonkers. The fact that there's torque steer on this motorcycle feels like it should not be allowed. That feels ridiculous. You know, in a lot of ways, this is like the most Italian-Japanese bike ever. You can't really find neutral gear that easily on it when you're at a stoplight, which is very Italian. It's incredibly quirky and strange, and it's obviously, you know, frickin' supercharged and all that good stuff. I really think this is kind of an Italian-Japanese bike in disguise. I don't really know. This is not like any Japanese bike I've ever ridden. This thing's very unique, very particular with what it wants and what it'll do, and all of its little quirks and stuff. That's for sure. So yeah, folks, the H2 is back in action. You love to see it. I unfortunately, the only time I had today to vlog this, because I was diagnosing some issues on the bike, is during rush hour traffic. So it's a little difficult to do some spicy pulls when you have a line of 100 cars in front of you. It's not going to happen. So I do apologize for not doing any spicy pulls today on the bike. However, I will make it up to you, because like I said, in 2 days time, Yammy Noob time, but in your time it'll be about a week that you see it. You will see this motorcycle at the Texas Mile event. I'm going to be going flat out E85 tune, going for that 200 plus mile per hour pull on this thing. Really giving it the biscuits and showing y'all everything that it's got going on. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video. Thought you guys would enjoy this little update on the H2, and we'll catch you on the next one. See you later.
Brother, only one thing to say to you today. While we sit here taking a knee, it's a special moment, me and you hanging out here. Do it. I don't even got to tell you what to do. You already know what to do. You've made it to the end of the video. You got the time. I know you're sitting there. You want to make sure that you can keep watching yourself some Yammy Noob. So what you want to do, just click that video right over here. Do it.